production. Today we are thrilled to welcome Stephanie Marango, MD, Holistic Health Physician, and the author of Your Body and the Stars, the Zodiac as Your Wellness Guide. This is a never-before-seen guide that uses the stars as its foundation. Stephanie is the founder of I Am Body and brings her years of training as a holistic health physician and yoga teacher to the book, while her co-author, Rebecca Gordon's expansive background in astrological consulting brings a unique and fresh approach to the Zodiac. Thank you so much for joining us, Stephanie, and happy Pub Week.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for being part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're excited to start, and I just want to let our viewers know that we're having a little bit of technical difficulties on and off. So if you can't hear us, we will reschedule and we'll have another chat. So Stephanie, before we begin the questions and answers, can you give us a little background and just bring us up to speed on what Your Body and the Stars is all about?
Sure. So Your Body and the Stars, the Zodiac as Your Wellness Guide, is it's all about your connection to the cosmos. It's how the Zodiac lives within you. Because I don't know about the listeners out there, but I didn't know even several years ago that each of the Zodiac signs relates to a region of the body. Right. For example, Aries relates to the head, Pisces to the feet, so on and so forth, from head to feet. This isn't a new idea. It's certainly not my idea or Rebecca's idea. It's actually how astrology used to be practiced back in the day, coming from the Babylonian records straight through Hippocrates, Plato, Aristotle, the institutions in the Middle Ages. Astrology has always been about health. And so this book is bringing that wisdom, that understanding of the story of the stars straight to your physical form so that you can learn about your mental, your emotional, your spiritual selves through the lens of the body.
Absolutely. It's like old made new again. A lot of people don't realize how astrology was looked at.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings me to my next question.
Yeah, ancient wisdom for modern times.
Exactly. And so this might be a long-winded question, but how has our connection with the stars changed over the years since ancient times? I mean, we're not as connected as people once were.
Well, intrinsically, that cosmic connection is there, right? We're microcosms of the macrocosm. So it's really that we have blocked ourselves from the connection. It's our inability to see it. And I think that's because in the past 100 or so years, we've really chosen to use the mind as our primary lens for understanding life, the universe, and everything. I see the world, Rebecca sees the world, the book sees the world as body, emotions, mind, soul, spirit is constituting each of us. So if we're coming at life through the mind, secondarily, from my experience, through the body, emotions, at least in New York City, are a distant third, spirit, maybe not, then, we're only going to see what the mind allows us to see. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why we haven't realized this connection to the cosmos, but that it is coming back as people are broadening their horizons, as they're expanding their views, as they're realizing they're more than meets the eye. I see it on par with our interest in the supernatural and all of the superhero movies coming out, and the zombies and the vampires and the unicorns and the angels that you see everywhere from TV to movies to T-shirts. People are ready to reach farther.
Yeah, absolutely. All those unicorns on coffee mugs and I was just in a store actually, and I was in anthropology, I think, and it was like astrology signs and little constellations everywhere on all their like home decor, always around.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about
it's in jewelry? It's in makeup lines.
Exactly. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about how you and Rebecca first connected, like how you first were made aware of her, and like how your stars eventually aligned? It's an interesting story.
I love that story because I love Rebecca, and it's just the perfect stars aligning story. So in 2012, I went to a panel discussion on the evolution of consciousness, and she was one of the speakers. And I was sitting in the front row, which I never do. In med school, I was always in the back of the lecture hall. But I was in the front row this time, and when I saw her, I just knew that I would not only meet her, but somehow intersect, collaborate profoundly with her. that night wasn't the night to get it started. And so I didn't say anything, just kept sitting and smiling. Went home, woke up the next day totally inspired with the idea for this book, because I'm a holistic health physician. So I use the body as metaphor in many different ways, not just astrology. And after hearing her speak, I was like, wow, astrology is just another lens through which we can understand our intangible and tangible bits and pieces. But anyway, after I outlined the book, put it away. Fast forward 6 months, and it turns out that the healing center by Gramercy Park, where I was seeing patients, was right where Rebecca, literally next door to where she was seeing her clients.
Wow.
And so we met. And so when I was given the opportunity to bring the outline to really develop in a book, I knew without hesitation she was the woman that I would want to collaborate with me.
Absolutely. That's crazy. Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Wow.
Our story is very much aligned.
Yeah. And this awesome book came to life, which I have a copy right here in case anyone didn't see this. It looks beautiful on our website. You guys have to check out all the star backgrounds. Now, I know that along with this book, you worked on a book previous. Can you just tell us a little bit about your writing background? When, have you always been interested in writing? When did it start? A little bit about that.
Well, I see writing as just one way to spread a message. And I guess my message is you are more than meets the eye. And my lens is the body. I understand the body, its physicality. I teach anatomy. I went to medical school. I'm very scientifically trained. But I'm also a human being who honors her intuition and experience. And so through that, I'm able to see through the body and how it connects to the rest of us. Now, parlaying that message, I can do sitting with my patients. I can do when I teach yoga teachers, other physicians, medical students. I love bringing it to life through the written word, because even though the book is prose, to me, I almost wanted to make it, it's not a poem, but I wanted to give it the ilk of a poem, the essence of a story, because, the stars and the cosmos and everything we're discussing, they're not fixed with hard lines. This is not, a linear subject. It's very subjective. And so, as you know, I interwove a lot. I've interwoven history and historical figures into it, in addition to the mythology of the stars and some anatomy on the body regions and exercises people can do at home in order to embody the different energies that we're discussing. So, long way of saying that the written word, I enjoy using it as one way to just spread the message and help people live who they are versus who they think they may be, which many times are two different things.
Absolutely. One of the things that hit home for me in the book was in the introduction, when you talk about practical magic, and kind of you talk about how it relates to the human body for you and how Rebecca kind of sees it in astrology. Can you explain your thoughts on practical magic and kind of talk a little bit about that? I really love that part. Something about it.
Yeah, I call when I have my patients, I call what I do practical magic, because the magic part, it's taking something etheric or intangible and suddenly giving it tangible life, which somehow has become, a woo-woo new age concept. Whereas I see the reality that we manifest all the time. For example, if you have a thought, just the simple thought of, I want to buy a house. Well, guess what? That's a thought. That's intangible. Like, it's a form of energy. You can't touch it and hold it, which, mind you, matter is just another form of energy. But you take something that's a thought, and then potentially you manifest it using your hand, pen and paper, writing down, okay, buy a house, 10 steps. What am I going to do? And then you pick up the phone, you make a call to the real estate agent. Obviously it's a simplistic example, but 10 steps later, you're actually living in the house. That just started as a thought and now suddenly is your physical reality. And to me, that's practical magic. And you can do that with your exercise regime. You can do that with nutrition. You can do that with qualities you want to embody. If you want to be, I'm working with someone right now, he wants to be more compassionate. So how do you take that concept of compassion and actually express it through his 24-hour-a-day reality, through his choice of words, his choice of food, his choice of partners, job, vacation, all of that? To me, that's the practical magic, because suddenly we change the tangible, the physical expressions of his day, and we've manifested an entirely new way of being for him.
Mm-hmm. Or you say like if you're frustrated at work, you feel it in your neck. The frustration becomes like a neck pain. So I think that's really interesting, and it does apply right to the book. What do you think is the best way to use this book? Like for someone who just bought it, it's laid out into 12 chapters. How would you go about, starting through this book?
So I'm going to actually touch upon that last comment you made as a way of circling around to this answer, because I think it's an important point, which is you mentioned the neck. Wherever, when I ask my students or I ask my patients, where do you take tension or stress in your body? Within a second, they're able to point neck, shoulders, lower back, maybe it's their head for a headache, wherever it is. And if I ask them, what is that tension? What is that stress? No one is going to tell me that it's a contraction of actin and myosin protein filaments, right? They're going to tell me that it's probably a concern about their job or a fight they had with a loved one or worries about making rent. In other words, some form of unresolved thought or emotion that ultimately, because it's not being attended to, becomes deeper and denser and denser until it lodges in the physical form in your body. So now in terms of using the book, this is one way to do it. So you can pick a body part that's calling your attention. Let's say the neck. And that's a great example because we're still in the month of Taurus, which governs the neck. So if you have a tight neck, if you have neck pain, then you have the chance to say, if you're open to it, okay, so, above and beyond whatever is going on with the muscles of my neck, what are the thoughts, what are the emotions, what are the energies that might be out of whack that I can take hands-on responsibility for? And Taurus, for example, has to do with, it's a very sensual sign, very experiential. It's reminding us, that energy which lives within us, regardless of what your sun sign is, to raise our heads from the ground up to the heaven. And so for all of these material things we have, not to get too stuck or attached to them, but to enjoy, right? Yeah. To enjoy more. And then to express that enjoyment. And expression comes through the neck. The neck is home to our vocal folds and the vocal cords that literally take vibration, form vibration into sound, and then sound into word. And so it expresses our likes and dislikes. So you can go to the chapter and you can read about what intentions and ideas you might want to bring into your day. We have self-directed questions to help you do that. We also have exercises from yoga, from Pilates, from Alexander technique, a whole eclectic bunch to choose.
Yeah. I'm a Scorpio.
And then I have to say, of course, the other way to use the book is you can go astrologically. Scorpio.
So I have to say, like, the two poses
so that
I have are like my favorite. It helps my back so much. Like the I forget what they are right now, but the press when you lift your butt up you're on your back. I can't remember my yoga poses, but it's my
the bridge pose?
Yes, my favorite.
Yeah, the bridge pose. Mm-hmm. I'm so glad that it helped you. And so Scorpio is your sun sign?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What are do you know your rising and moon signs?
I don't right now. Yeah, I was born on October 27th, 1985. I need to figure it out.
So if you know the date, the time, and the location, you can go to cafeastrology.com for free. I don't know anyone there. This is not a paid advertisement or anything. It's just a good place to log in that information and receive what your different signs are for you to know, because those, again, the entire zodiac lives within us. We have all of those different energies within us, and different energies are going to pop up at different points in our life to say, hey, you need to pay attention to me, bring me back into balance. But the sun sign, the moon sign, and the rising sign tend to be the three most prominent signs in our lives. So it's, for most people, that could be a starting point.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna have to look it up and figure out 9:30 a.m. So we need to narrow it down. But I mean, like when I looked at the book, I went to Scorpio when I looked at the book right away. But then I'm like, oh wow, like just flipping back and forth with like different trouble spots that I've noticed. So how do you think is the best way to use the book?
So either a body region, your knee's like, God, why is my knee bothering me so much? And it turns out my Capricorn energies are out of balance. Or astrologically, absolutely, either according to sign, for example, I'm a sun sign Sagittarius, what lessons are in store for me? How can I keep myself healthy so that my hips and thighs, which is the region Sagittarius connects to, don't encounter any trouble? Mm-hmm. Or you can take the energy, meaning the teachings of this sign. So for example, if you did want to be more compassionate, like the patient I was talking about, then you could flip to the chapter on Pisces and read about Pisces, which rules the feet, and play around with that. It's really, everyone is welcome to read it cover to cover, but it's also very much a hands-on manual reference book that you can have your entire life, because upon rereads, you're going to come at it from a different place each time, so there will be something new to learn from it each time.
Absolutely. Yep, that's the best part. Now, while working with Rebecca, did you learn anything new in the realm of astrology that really surprised you, where you were, just kind of blown away? Was there anything that you didn't know?
I'm not an astrologer, so I learned tons about astrology. My forte is understanding the body and how it connects through us through many different guises. It can be astrology, it can be the chakra systems, can be ancient wisdom, et cetera, et cetera. So I was really surprised to understand not only how complex a system astrology is, but how it forms the history of medicine and science. I had no idea. As I didn't take the Hippocratic Oath. I was trained at Mount Sinai School of Medicine in New York City. We take the Oath of Maimonides. Most medical students take the Hippocratic Oath. I had no idea that the Hippocratic School of Medicine back in the day, with Hippocrates being considered the founder of modern medicine, that they incorporated the planets and the stars into medicine. And it's not like it was controversial or that medicine was another field. Everything was connected at that time. So of course you would know never to take blood from a Gemini in her arm when the moon was full. A physician would be silly not to know that.
Yeah.
So that was beautiful, and you can read the history of medicine and science, and it includes astrology from non-astrologers, from very objective sources, who will even say in their books, and it's kind of sad. Well, it's sad to me that astrology is just a subject, has to be so controversial, but they'll say whether you believe in astrology or not, it is the history of medicine and science.
Exactly. And
so it's fascinating.
Yeah.
How we've come from there.
Absolutely. And you mentioned a little bit about your health and wellness background, and where you went to school. Can you tell us a little bit more just about? I know you're into yoga and you've done a lot with that, and I Am Body. Just give us a good background about it. It sounds so interesting.
So yes, it's I'm a jack of all trades in the wellness world, kind of. I entered into medical school not as a traditional pre-medical student. It was by way of a 6-car collision on Highway 101 back in 1998. Wow. Before then, I was on a very different path, but the fact that I was car number 5 out of 6 and made it out alive very much catalyzed me to ask a lot of questions about who I was and how I was living. It was really the first time alignment of character came across my mind. And as I was lying on the couch and I couldn't move and I lost my short-term memory, as I was lying there, I realized that the most fundamental good, which is how I had wanted to serve people, was through body, mind, spirit, well-being. And I just couldn't shake that thought. And I wanted to, because I didn't want to go back to pre-medical classes and then go into medical school. And I'm a very integrative, holistic person by birth. I mean, I was mixing green juice smoothies, back when I was 12, and my parents thought I was nuts, and making oatmeal masks for my face. But I chose the MD route for a couple of reasons, but primarily because I felt that the way I could best help would be to, in my little corner of the world, add in some holism, add in some integration, round some of the hard corners. And so I went into medical school already integratively minded. I already was a yoga teacher at that point. And then my skill set and my toolbox just grew from there in many different surprising and unsurprising, but surprising ways. So I currently have a practice at the Ash Center in New York City. It's this wonderful, comprehensive, progressive center. And it's through I Am Body, where, the platform for the private practice, as well as other books I've written, like The Wisdom of Your Body, and different classes that I teach to yoga teachers, med students, as well as the lay people. And there's a radio show, there's a whole bunch of stuff. But the construct of I am body for whomever the audience is what does your I am body say today, right? Every body tells a story. And you get to choose, right? Do you want your story to be one of anxiety or do you want it to be one of enthusiasm? But your body is saying something. For example, it's the classical example, and it is at a very general level, but depression many times come across with stooped over shoulders, downward gazed, right? A lot of people might not be walking around this much out of their natural alignment, but some degree, versus the posture of joy is a more ecstatic, enthusiastic extension. So your body is saying something, and what do you want it to say? Because you have the choice. You get to choose if you want it to be, radiant, rushed, anxious, enthusiastic, and then live accordingly. So that's the goal.
So
to help people in that way.
Yeah, and I'm sure that along your way you've kind of come across maybe favorite writers or influencers in the health and wellness field. Can you tell us anyone that you read a lot, that you kind of love to go back to get inspiration from?
That's interesting. I don't tend to read a lot from one author. Back in the days when I read fiction, Milan Kundera was someone that I would read again and again and again. I tend to repeat subjects versus authors because I read nonfiction, and so the past several years, what I read is some combination of quantum physics and evolutionary anatomy.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's my husband thinks I'm nuts. It's 11 o'clock at night, and I'm reading these books for fun, but they're very inspiring to me. So for me, it's a wonderful way to end the day with that universal feeling, that feeling of connection, whether at the physical level or at the subatomic level, which is really just the energetic level.
Now, what is your personal sign, and what have you learned about your traits while putting this book together? Was there a lot of trouble spots, or things that you changed that you just saw transform?
It's interesting. As I was writing the book, I'd always ask Rebecca what planets I had in any given sign, because I noticed after writing a couple of chapters, Taurus, for example, I had a hard time writing. I have such a hard time writing Taurus. And it turns out I have no planets in it, so I don't have as much of a connection to it. So in writing each chapter, I would want to understand my connection to it, and then also either patients I've worked with or loved ones, friends and family in my life who embody it in order to get a clearer sense. But then, okay, so for me, I'm a Sagittarius sun sign.
Yeah.
That rules the hips. Yeah. I do have hip problems on the maternal side of my family. Fortunately, I don't have any hip problems, but I'm very aware of what my hips say. So for example, my hips are very externally rotated. So I have this outward, I walk like a duck kind of. You see it through the outward rotation of my feet. But what that external rotation is saying is I have my direction has a very wide scope, which is a very Sagittarius thing. We're guides, we're visionaries, we're way showers. That's the centaur with the arrow pointing up and out. And so it's wonderful to have this feeling of infinite possibility, but at the same time, I can't be too external. Otherwise, everything's happening at the same time. Nothing's going to ground. There's not going to be any follow through. So for me, it's about keeping my hips and thighs. I have to internally rotate more in order to keep them in more of a neutral. So I do that using chair pose, which is one of the exercises that we give in the book. And chair pose really helps strengthen that internal rotation to keep me on the straight and narrow, so to speak. So I use it not for injury, but really just to keep myself in check.
You're always kind of correcting yourself. I'm the same way. Definitely the same way. You and Rebecca are such great speakers.
Well, I mean, we have every day of our life to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to say, do you guys have any future plans to give any talks about the book? I think it would be so interesting to hear you guys speak together.
So right now, monthly at Exhale Spa in New York City, once a month, I'm co-teaching a super fun class with Stephanie Eris, who's a stellar yogi, and it's a movement-oriented class to bring the book to life. And that's once a month. We just finished Taurus. Gemini will be next month. Rebecca and I will be together at Om Shanti in New York City, which is a holistic bookstore just east of Union Square on June 10th. We've been on a bunch of radio shows. What else are we? There's, as you very well know, there's a lot of stuff percolating right now. I'd hate to have to take out my file of facts while we're in the middle of the interview in order to remember.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I'm a mom, so if it's not written down.
Yeah, I hear you. What's the main takeaway that you'd like people to come away with after reading Your Body in the Stars? Kind of just an overall.
I want them to feel inspired. I want them to feel a greater potential than they might have felt before they opened the book. I'm not trying to proselytize astrology here. I think it's a wonderful modality people can use and have used literally for millennia in order to live happier, healthier lives. But like yoga, nutrition, acupuncture, spinning, it's just one. And so it either works for you or it doesn't. But what I'm really hoping is that it works for people to remind them that they are more than meets the eye, to remind them that they are more than just mind, they are more than just body, and that if they incorporate these greater aspects of them, they can feel even better than they already do every day of their lives.
That's super inspiring. It's just great to hear all this. It's such a new topic to me because I don't know the history of astrology and I've loved reading it. Are you guys working on anything for any future plans for anything? Are you working on a new book? Do you think you guys would ever do something in the future?
I'd like to. Quite honestly, it depends on the success of this first book.
Yeah,
so please buy the book so we have a shot of writing another book, because quite honestly, this can keep going on and on. You can talk about it in regards to all of the planets. I'd love to be able to discuss the planets in the body.
Yeah.
This sticks to the zodiac signs. And it's as you know, it's quite a feast just with the signs. We recognize that even though it's an ancient concept, it's new to our modern world. So we didn't want to overwhelm people with everything at once. We just wanted to reintroduce this connection.
Yeah, it's a perfect
and then build from there.
Now, we're about to run out of time, but I just wanted to let everybody know that Your Body in the Stars came out yesterday. It is pubbed. It's pub week, so happy pub week to you and Rebecca. It's so exciting, and I wanted to thank you again for joining us, and thank to all our viewers for coming to watch. Thanks so much.
You know, I've totally lost the connection here, but I'm guessing, Amanda, that you just said goodbye and thank you, and so goodbye and thank you to you and to all of our viewers and listeners. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.